Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. I am joined today by Attila, better known as Vidam. Welcome to Adobe Live. This is the place to hopefully get fully inspired and immersed in creativity. We're going to be going through all sorts of illustration and other stuff. For those of you who are familiar and frequent viewers of Adobe Live, you may recognize I'm in a different place. I've got a different setup. I'm on the road at the moment. So apologies in advance if my Wi-Fi cuts out and other stuff, but otherwise we should be good to go. So welcome, Attila, how you doing?
Hello, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm fine, I'm very fine, and looking forward to show you some of my tips and tricks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, already from the beginning, you've already got a background that is showing off some of your work. By the way, for those of you who may be watching us on YouTube, that's cool. You can hang out there. You can continue to watch us. But if you'd like to join in with the chat, make sure you head over to Behance, and we've got the chat active. And welcome to everyone in the chat. Make sure you state your name and say hello. Welcome to Dashak, Andreas, Sean. Tim is in the chat. Tim's always in the chat. Oliver, Chibrian, I'm going to guess the pronunciation of that. Sorry if I got that wrong. Doris, welcome. How is everyone doing today? Yes, very excited for this. So now tell me, we were just talking before stream about Vidam as the word and the meaning, which I think has got a nice little backstory. So I don't know if you want to just start and reshare that with everyone who is joining us on the live.
Yeah, so I was born in Budapest in Hungary, and my father is Hungarian, and this word Vidam is Hungarian and it means happy. And due to me loving painting, illustrating funny characters, loads of years ago I decided to use this as an interesting artist name because it made sense. Because I only painted characters in that time as a graffiti artist, and I was searching for something unique, and this sounded legit to me. Vidam.
Nice, makes perfect sense. And your style and your work is very much coming from the sort of street art style, and kind of fits that sort of persona, right?
My style is an evolution, extreme evolution over the last years and almost decades. So I used to paint totally different style back in the days, and then I got bored again and again, and it constantly evolved and changed, and finally I ended up with the super sharp angles and straight lines, and but still funny characters. But I tried to find an illustration style that is special and unique and something different, and that's where I'm now. And
nice.
but I still really like to paint exactly this style, because in the past it was always a struggle to stay with one aesthetic, and I got bored relatively quickly and was searching for something different. But now I'm doing this for several years now, and that's a good feeling.
Yeah, so it's definitely like a refined sort of direction and process of things. Speaking of which, shall we jump over onto your screen and see what we're working with?
Yeah, so I prepared this little bunny because it was Easter, and I thought, okay, when I thought about this, why not doing a little bunny? Okay, Easter is over now, but I think for the just for showing the idea. It's okay. It's a little bunny character,
Nice.
and I prepared the sketch in Photoshop and wanted
Yep.
to vectorize it in Illustrator now, and then I wanted to show you how I switch back to Photoshop and refine the illustration, the vectors. So maybe I'll start the vectorization. So you see here in my color the color palette, I mostly start with actually no colors at all, no paint. The paint, how's it called? These little paint swatches or.
So this was, you sketched this digitally and in Photoshop, or is this a scan from a pencil?
No. This is digitally. I painted a sketch in Photoshop. I do all my sketches always in Photoshop most of the time, or sometimes with the iPad. But I really got used to work digitally entirely in the last years. So
are you using a Wacom pen or something similar?
Yes. Normally I do exactly the Wacom at home. I have a Wacom, but now I'm also not at home. I'm in Paris at the moment.
Oh, nice.
And for a job, because my main job is not. I do a lot of illustration, of course, but the main work I do is mural painting. So I paint these characters on murals. And now I'm in Paris for a large commissioned job for where I paint plenty of funny characters as murals, and that's why I'm here. And for this case, I have a little like a traveling gadget. It's a Huion tablet. It's the same like Wacom, but it's but this one is way smaller. At home I have a Wacom Pro 24, a Cintiq. It's super awesome, of course, for the home studio. But here on the road I have a smaller Huion, but it fits easily in my backpack. But it works very well. It has it's a 4K resolution and super fast, everything very good. And
so it's still a display that you're drawing on. It's not like a remote.
Exactly, it's a display, same like a Cintiq, just smaller.
Nice. I haven't seen one of those. I'll look it up. Previously when I did a lot of retouch work and sort of like asset creations, I used to use a Wacom a lot. I personally preferred the smaller tablets. I originally came from a larger, I think it was the Intuos Pro, I guess large or XL or something. But then I found it so much easier going to a smaller one. I guess it was just like wrist fatigue if you were going too large, or I was always just using the center points anyway. So sometimes the travel friendly ones are potentially more efficient for regular use as well.
So I'm figuring it out at the moment. I'm honestly I hardly use this one because when I'm traveling, I normally I don't really paint or draw digitally. Then I'm concentrate on the traveling or on like here on the actual work, painting murals with the spray cans all day, and then I don't use the digital tablet anymore. But at home, I really like the big one from Wacom. So I use them for more than 10 years already, the Cintiqs. So I'm extremely used to them. And
do you travel with the spray paint if you're doing murals, or do you purchase the paint when you arrive somewhere?
It really depends. So here in Paris, I came with the plane, and they're made. It doesn't make sense to come with the airplane and take your cans, because Paris is well known for vibrant graffiti scene. So we have a lot of good opportunities to purchase the spray cans here. But sometimes if I have a project in some villages or cities or locations where it is not don't have this large variety of graffiti shops.
Got you.
That's something different. Then I sometimes I go with my car and then I bring the cans with me.
Mm-hmm.
But here in Paris, you have everything.
Nice.
Yeah. So I just without any comment, I just started the artwork, the vectorization process, and I guess most of the audience and most of the viewers, I guess they know what I'm doing here. I just trace the sketch with vector shapes, and I do it like this, that I first outline the entire area. For example, in this case, the shape of the head completely, but this is something like it's like semi three-dimensional object. So that's why I need to add, of course, these parts like the 3D block that make the whole
like the shading and the sort of highlights and everything.
That make the highlights and the shape make the block 3D. Okay, you realize already I'm not used to speak and illustrate at the same time.
Yeah, so no worries. No worries. I mean, there's a lot going on here. So I'm following along. I personally haven't done much sort of illustration work or digital illustration, but like you said, I can follow along using the pen tool here, and I see that you're switching to outlines frequently, which Command Y is the shortcut for that if you're new to Illustrator.
Exactly, because I put the sketch in a layer in a how's it called in English? In German we call it a Vorlage layer. So that means if you switch into the outline mode, it's still visible, and this helps a lot for tracing the. So here for the shading, I used to work very simply only with white layers and a transparency on them, so that the layer behind got brightened up a bit, and the same for the dark areas. Then I use just simple black and multiply it to achieve the same result only for dark.
I see. So that way you're only changing the single color underneath, right? And then the highlights, they adopt whatever's underneath because of the transparency.
Exactly. So now
got you.
But I said black, but maybe I choose a different. So I also work with these global paint swatches, so that I can change them completely for the whole document if I want to change the color. So in this, we have
I like to see it efficient. It's good.
Sorry?
It's good to see an efficient workflow. I love that.
Yeah, but I think this is maybe I think this is pretty standard, I guess. So because
you'd be surprised. I've seen people doing the long way around, multiple swatches, multiple inconsistencies.
Okay, so the thing is, like I already mentioned, I really love to delete all the color swatches that come in a standard of new document and start with zero colors at all, because then I have to think about the individual color climate from scratch every time, and also it helps to not overwhelm the document or the artwork with too much different colors, because I personally don't like if the artwork's too colorful. I really like if you have a reduced color climate. So back then I love to make a t-shirt prints with a screen print, and generally screen print, and then you were always limited to a super limited palette of different paint. And at that time I'm got used to use only 3 or 4 colors maximum, including of course the different shades, but it's still one base color.
Yeah. Already you can see just the way that you're adding that sort of 3D element. It's really just starting to lift off. I'm excited to see how this is going to transform, because I know you're going to chop and change applications and sort of tweak things a bit further.
Absolutely. So this, I think, I used to work in Illustrator for a lot of years, but then one day I realized that I don't like the pure cold vector aesthetic. I don't like it anymore that much. That's why I started to add some like texture in Photoshop, but on the vector layers. Now where's the grid? Okay, this is font.
So with the colors that you're currently choosing and working with, are they colors that you're sort of envisioning for the final product, or do you have like colors that you use as a tool that you'll change later down the line?
Yes. I think I'm pretty sure I'm going to change them all the time. So that I prepare my global color boxes, and then while doing the vector work, I always try out the other color combinations, because I got bored to the colors very quickly. And while doing the vectors, I already start playing around with them. Now, for example, I think this is too close to each other, these two colors. I could already start changing this eyebrow.
Yeah.
Boom. And
nice.
Now we have an egg. Yes. And now I guess I will introduce a third color. But yes, this changes all the time. Maybe something like this for now. But also later in Photoshop, I started playing around with the saturation, everything, and the hue all the time. So this is absolutely nothing fixed at the moment.
I see.
But it's of course important. But it's to start with some color. I don't like to vectorize everything only in black and white.
Then of course this is one of the major benefits of doing digital. But if you're painting with spray paint and cans, how does that differ? You have to be so much more direct with your color choice, surely.
But that makes it easier, because you're automatically very limited to the available spray cans, and you don't have so many options. So there are of course a lot of paints from every manufacturer. But if you're used to one range, then I really like to use the same colors all the time again, because if you buy spray paint, then you have them in your storage, and then you have to use it again and again, and then you get used to them. And so I only use maybe 8 different ranges all the time, and that's why I think this is easier, because if you do it digitally, you're absolutely not restricted at all, and the opportunities can be overwhelming sometimes, and I think that doesn't make it easier.
Yeah, you almost have too much choice that you can't decide anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
question in the chat actually, of what is your sort of preference or reasoning for doing this manually versus using the extrude tool, the 3D tools of Illustrator? Is it just habit, or do you have any stylistic reason why?
So this, if you use this extrude tool, I guess then, so I honestly, I never really tried it out.
Mhm.
And I tried it out once, but then I directly realized that it doesn't work for me like I like I wanted. And I'm really, I'm coming from painting and manual illustrating, and this didn't support my workflow how I liked it somehow. And things like this, for example, when the extrusion becomes narrower and then ends up in this spike, this is something that I have to do manually. And I really like if it's not a perfect calculated extrusion. So it looks like a freestyle graffiti block, and there are always tiny little mistakes if you do it by hand. And this is something I prefer to have some manual little mistakes, so that it makes it obvious that it's not completely digitally rendered.
From my perspective, it looks as though you actually have so much more control doing it manually, because stylistically, not everything is fully 3D. You're sort of choosing which parts, and you're using creative license to choose that this bit would be 3D, but this bit won't be. And I think, like you said, those imperfections add extra character. It adds your signature that this is there's labor behind this. It's not just a generated thing.
Exactly. So honestly, I wanted to learn 3D programs for a long time, but they're so complicated, and I'm struggling so hard to learn them. And I watched 1,000 tutorials already, but only watching tutorials doesn't bring anything if you don't do the work and try the programs on your own. Only watching doesn't help you, and that's why. So I watched all the time, but I didn't really do
the practice.
Some practice work. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, that's one of the benefits and main reasons why we do Adobe Live, because rather than it being a condensed tutorial all the time, which is fully polished, seeing it this way and spending time to see the work happen means that you see the mistakes, and you see, the trial and error and the genuine process to things. So sometimes it pays to spend longer watching, but yeah, you definitely have to do the practice. Otherwise, you'll never do it naturally.
Absolutely. And I didn't have the time to practice with 3D programs, because I have to do the regular job and doing illustrations and murals and stuff. And I also love painting traditionally on canvas. And if I have to choose if I paint a canvas or practice 3D, something where I don't know if this makes sense for me at all, then I'm mostly I'm going for the known work in painting. And that's why, but I think my style could work very well also in 3D, in real 3D. But maybe one day I will have the time. We'll see.
I can also imagine your style working really well in physical, like paper cutouts and sort of like a cardboard, like actual 3D in 3D space. In real life. I think that could be quite an interesting take.
Absolutely. There are many ideas what to do in the future, and doing little sculptures, for example, with wood, cutting these forms, the shapes out of wood, and collaging them as little sculptures is an idea that I definitely want to do one day.
Yeah.
And we'll
animation.
See.
Have you delved into much animation work at all? This style lends itself to movement so well, I'm sure.
The same. So animation is also something I'm really interested in, but but it's, for me, it's absolutely not possible to also learn After Effects, for example. I don't know when I should do this.
Yeah, only so many hours in the day.
Exactly. This. Nah. Where's the other shape? This. Too much ideas and not enough time. That's
So are you using any shortcuts to set these sort of opacities on things? Are you doing it kind of quickly, or are you just using the eyedropper a lot? I haven't noticed.
Mostly for the opacity stuff, I use the eyedropper most of the time. But I use shortcuts for other stuff, like here, if I cut out stuff and then I rearrange it behind other objects, then I use the shortcuts.
Yeah.
So in eyeball.
It's always nice seeing the work happen close up, and then when you take a step back and zoom out from it, then you see the bigger picture and you think, oh wow, yeah, this is really coming along and developing. It's looking cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I always like if the shading appears, or maybe we don't do it like this, and then it becomes more and more three-dimensional. And then even more if you go to Photoshop, and if you this whole rendering process is so much fun. See how the character becomes alive. And in this case, I can develop this ear and entirely bring it. I forgot. Copy it to the background and use the same ear for the other ear.
And so at the moment we're just watching a character be created, but you have some interesting backgrounds and sort of like extra environment design that you work with. Do you find yourself falling into similar sort of illustration styles when you're doing that, or do you let the main character sit in its own special, unique environment each time?
I don't really understand the question.
So the background where your artwork sits.
Yes.
Do you find yourself experimenting a lot, like as a place to try different styles and things, or do you fall into the same sort of signature style for your work?
No, I don't experiment too much on the background. In the last couple of months and years, I developed like a little signature element, the so-called kinked ribbon. It's like a zigzag object that it's always the same, but has always different angles and lengths and everything. And I use it in the background, but I will show it later in this illustration either, because it's a good example on how the smart object integration in Photoshop works.
Of course, yeah.
And but at first I want to import only the actual illustration, and later adding the background very quickly. So now,
I'm interested as well with so a lot of your work in a in a physical space. What's the biggest thing you've ever worked on? I saw that you've spray painted cars and other murals. Have you ever, what's the biggest surface you've worked on?
biggest surface was in building, a 5-story building,
Nice.
and like the entire facade, or yeah, like a wall, the whole wall of the building. And I made several of these buildings already, but last year there was the largest one, and yeah, this is obviously only possible with technical help by like cherry pickers or boom lifts or scaffoldings, and takes a long time. But
Yeah.
this is definitely so much fun. It's honestly, it's not so. It's fun, but it's very hard work, like physical work. And but this is what I really enjoy. Yeah, to as a comparison to the computer work. That's why I really love the work at the wall, because it's so so good to stand up from your desk and do actual physical work on a wall and see as a final result a big mural. This is I think this is the best thing you can do if you're an illustrator, to have your piece on a large wall, and many people can see it or witness it in reality, and not only on digital screens.
Yeah.
And producing this kind of work is also so satisfying to feel your body to and it's hard sometimes, but it's most of the time it's worth it.
Nice. I can imagine it must be so difficult if you're working on such a big space to have a perspective on what you're actually working on, because you need to zoom out to see everything. So do you take the cherry picker like forwards and back? Are you constantly up and down, or do you have like a spotter or a camera and a remote screen? I'm thinking all sorts of ideas here.
That's the most important thing, of course, to transfer your idea, your sketch, the design you prepare in the same scale or the same proportion to the wall. Of course, this is the biggest challenge, but yeah, there are different techniques to achieve this. And like already the painters back then in the Renaissance or something, they had different like grid methods to achieve this. And it's similar nowadays. A lot of muralists use special grids to achieve this. Or if the circumstances are ideal, sometimes you can also use a projector, for example. Then it's also easy and just simply project. But then you need if it's a large wall, you need a super strong projector, but that's not always the best. And if you have a scaffolding, for example, then a projector doesn't work as well. Then have a scaffolding in front of the wall, then you definitely have to use a grid. So yeah, a traditional good old school grid is the go-to method most of the time.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember seeing all across in America, it's still quite common to have a lot of the billboards and sort of advertising is still painted by muralists rather than just printed and and stick up as a sort of a bill poster. I remember the first time I saw one, like I kind of looked and I was like, whoa, that's actually been painted, and that's across the 10 stories on a car park or something. It's very cool to just stop, and it really makes you sort of take stock of it. So for advertising, it's brilliant because of course you're looking at the brand, you're doing exactly what you're designed to do. And then of course in cities where street art is like a main sort of accent to the city, that's always incredible. I lived in Melbourne for a while, and the street art in Melbourne is so good. It's everywhere. I love it.
Oh yes, yeah, I heard about this, and I definitely want to go there one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And
So,
Berlin as well. You're based in Berlin, right? That's great.
yes.
For street, and I'm sure a lot of the scenes and the environment is changing frequently. Have you ever had one of your sort of large murals painted over and sort of change to something else? And how do you feel
Oh
if that
yes.
happens?
Oh, super bad. I used to paint a super beautiful large mural in Budapest, the city where I was born in Hungary, and it only stood there for 2 years, and then they built a new building next to this house where the mural was on, and so this beautiful mural disappeared because a new building was built there, and that's bad.
Yeah.
But that's normal. Street art is something. How is it called? Ephemeral or something. So it's not there for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, when you come from graffiti, then you're used to your pieces.
It's
Getting
almost
overpainted, disturbed, or buffed, like deleted,
mm-hmm.
and so that's why I'm really I'm used to it. Most of the street artists are used to this.
Mm-hmm. I guess in some ways, if you've designated an area that you want to sort of make your mark on, you really have to have confidence that what you're going to add to it is going to be an improvement on what was already there. So that must be quite daunting if you decided on an area.
Sorry, now I was a bit.
No worries. As I say, it's in areas where, so say in Melbourne, for example, I know there's designated parts of the city which are sort of street art sort of zones,
yes.
I guess. Then if you've decided that you're going to do this part of the lane and there's already artwork there, you must have to have confidence that what you're going to do is going to be worthwhile if you're going to paint over something that already exists. It's it must be quite scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but if you paint on large scale outside, then you always have to be confident that it's good work you're doing. And but most of the artists are very confident, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
And
there's actually Reverb Mike in the chat has painted some billboards back in the day. Yeah, good to know we've got other people with similar experience.
Absolutely. But billboards, that means it's like a painted advertisement, or so it's not like free art. It's like an advert, but
like
it's painted.
A sort of a similar talent, but in a different direction, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So now I copy the entire ear. Grouping, copy.
I see.
And then I use the same back here.
Mm-hmm. This is where you see how accurate your sketch was for dimensions.
Yeah, now I need to do. I need to transform it a bit. How? And of course, it doesn't make sense. It don't need to be perfect with the sketch. So like this. And now I group the whole thing, put the same thing once again. Copy. Command F, and then Where's the pathfinder here? Put a black layer on it. That's a bit a bit darker.
I see, yep.
So it looks like it's in the background. Okay, now I have to get rid of the grid. How does it work? Where is the grid?
Command apostrophe, is that?
Come on.
I'm not sure actually. It's been a while since I've done that in Illustrator.
Okay, doesn't matter because I did some shortcut, and suddenly I had this this grid that I don't know what I did. Okay, I'm bringing a bit more saturation. Oh, no.
This is where those global colors really help.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that's the depth also to the egg.
I haven't had a single Easter egg this year. That might be the first time in my life.
You didn't have an because you're in Thailand.
Yeah, I usually use that as an excuse to get chocolate, and you know, it's fine.
Yeah,
you can have chocolate as much as you like.
I had a lot of chocolate Easter eggs. Maybe too much, but yeah, I really like these little red ones from Switzerland. Don't know if you know them. They are very popular in Germany.
Lindt ones.
Lindt, exactly.
Lindor, yeah.
Oh, they're so tasty.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the green, the sort of mint truffle version of those. I really like them.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's unhealthy, dangerous little pleasure.
Do you have a lot of snacks when you're designing and illustrating?
Sometimes. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Okay, so I think this is it for now in Illustrator, because now we switch to Photoshop and yeah.
Cool.
And add some things there. And my main goal is to show you the possibilities of the smart objects, because I just discovered it. It's an old feature, I guess, but I just discovered it just a few months ago, and I really like it.
Oh, really?
So, okay, I will save this and then go to Photoshop. I will close this, and then I go to this menu. Here, open as smart object. I guess it's in English. And then choose my. Why is this an old? This is the old file.
Is that the same location, maybe?
This is an old. So I close this. Why? Okay. But why is this the old? Oh, not again. Okay. Oh.
If you reopen it and then just go to the save as command, you should be able to see where this one has gone.
Okay. It's okay. it's a different location now because because of the smart object I did earlier with it. So
I
I
see.
bring
Yep.
it live. There's this. Okay, now I can use this.
There we go.
Active Photoshop.
So this is opening the Illustrator file.
Yeah, yes. Now we have, okay. First here we have this little window. It goes to me, this, and then boom. Then we have the same in Photoshop. And now we can add our textures. And we see here it's a smart object. And I used to work like this, that I'm to bring some grunge in it. I like to put some effects on it. What was the name again? I always forget I use it all the time, but I forget all the time the name of the effect. It's Verzerrung, Wölben, Verbiegen, Kräuseln. In Germany, it's Kräuseln. And this brings some tiny little
like
distortion.
A texture. Yeah.
Okay, this is a bit too much, but it's a smart filter. You can open it again. It always opens on the other screen. And then, oh no, this is the. So it's that's something Adobe needs to change to this little, this preview window so small that you don't see the actual changes, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm sure whoever in Adobe is listening, they quite often take notes. We've had feedback in the past that's been acted on, so it's good.
Yeah, so now we have a little bit of more imperfection already in this straight outlines. Yeah. And then I put a new multiplied. I know we don't. The thing is, I really like to use this one. In German, it's sprenkeln. I don't know how you say in English. In the German version, it's called sprenkeln. And then I go for a pretty standard brush. This one bigger with some airbrush on, and then you see this rough texture. It looks like a spray paint, in my opinion.
Nice.
Then I do it like this, that I use this tool and select the areas I want to affect with the.
So this was
texture.
Just a brand new layer, and then I think it was set to dissolve. Is that right? And
yes.
Then you just got a rough brush.
And
do you find that you chop and change your sort of direction on this, because now you're working on a destructive layer, and if you do this too much, do you find yourself coming back a lot and changing things and softening it, or are you quite sort of confident in where you're going with your first brush strokes?
I don't know. I just try out stuff, and if I like it, I
just go for it.
I just go for it. So maybe let's start a bit smaller. For example, bring some gradients in some areas like here, starting with this smaller brush. Oh, the pen doesn't work. Okay, like this.
I see.
and then
Yeah.
manually
So,
paint in the shadows, the gradients.
nice.
The more I add, the darker it gets, but it looks a bit like textured.
Yeah, it really starts to add like more sort of depth to it, but at the same time retains that sort of real world paint feel to it. So yeah, it's a nice effect.
And but now I think about now I used actual like black, dark black. Maybe I change it. It's okay for now. So there are plenty of different methods, of course, to achieve similar effects. I don't know if this is the best method, but I just like select the color areas, and then I manually paint in this this shadow, and then I add a new layer for the highlights, and then I select these bright areas. Oh, yeah, for something like that, yeah. And then I use just white. This.
It's almost like the equivalent of dodging and burning for digital art versus photos.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
Like this. And here.
And you're just using the Magic Wand tool, right, to make these selections?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't use so many layers, so I just work all the bright parts in one layer, and in the other layer, the dark areas.
Okay.
So if I want to add some light here, yeah, okay, selected it already, bright, and then going back with, or maybe it's not necessary to use white, maybe just exact this purple. Just paint in the purple.
Nice.
And here I can select exactly this greenish color, and then go back to bright.
You can really see how that roughened texture at the start is just adding like a nice sort of softer edge to the marks that you're making.
Yeah, sometimes I make a manual selection, like here in the ear. Boom. Hey. What? Okay, now he doesn't. What happens now? What? Ah, okay, something is not. Selection is, I guess it's a soft selection. That's why we have this. Don't need soft selection here. Once again. And then, if I want more brightness, then I put a second layer, and then I go for the white. Okay, I have to put this.
Interesting. So you're just layering up and predominantly only using black and white for these layers, which means that if you change the color underneath, it should all work naturally, right?
Yes. But most of the time I try to find the right colors in Illustrator directly. For example, here I'm this here I dropped this purple color. So if I change the purple to a different color, then I have this purple shading here. So in this case, it would be better to not change the color at all, or too much.
I see, yeah.
Maybe. But when I'm once I switch to Photoshop, I really like to just play with these options in Photoshop if I want to change the color, you know.
Okay, yep.
And but now I want to show you what I mean with the smart objects possibilities. So now I have this the smart object. If I double click on it, it opens the file again in Illustrator, and now I can add stuff here. But maybe I will shade the egg first,
Okay.
and then add the patterns. So this a bit dark. Maybe it's larger brush. We get right.
I've just noticed the screen on my camera has gone off, so hopefully it's still working. But I think we're still good.
Okay. Nice.
It's always my biggest worry here is actually cameras overheating, like genuinely overheating in the heat.
Yeah. Can imagine. This doesn't work with my.
So you're now back in Photoshop, shading
Yes.
with the egg, right? Yeah.
Yes. Nah. And okay, first I will save this. Cool. Okay, now if I go back to the vectors, I can add some pattern. Then I switch to this this mode innen, so, drawing inside, and then I have my little kinked little yeah, objects.
Yeah.
Ribbons.
Nice. So do you find that you switch back from Photoshop into Illustrator frequently? Does the smart objects just enable that freedom to do that?
Yes, I really like to add patterns and stuff later.
Okay.
To the objects, because when I'm shading, I realize if an object needs for more detail, if it needs some pattern or something, and that's why I don't paint them directly. I'll add them later. Sometimes if an object is shaded, then it doesn't need a pattern anymore. Okay, right.
Just a word on the time, by the way. So we just reached 60 minutes, but we can go over a little bit if you want to add your final touches with the ribbons and the sort of texturing.
Okay.
Not to rush you.
Okay. I'll add this little thingies, and then you see that like magic, they appear in Photoshop, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's again in. Okay. Why?
There's a mention in the chat of rarely using sprinkle, but using it to paint texture is a great idea. I agree. I think it works really well, and especially, you know, in your case where you're coming from a digital, or sorry, from a in real life environment, and digital in the sort of crossover between them works really well, definitely. Hey, look at that.
Yeah, now you have this they appeared like magic in the egg, and
Nice.
so you can switch between because I really like to switch between the cold digital style of the vectors, but I also like to add handmade highlights in Photoshop later with some where is it? This, for example, the amazing cartoon nib. I really like to add just simple white highlights drawn by hand, like outlines, but I only add them here, for example. And
so
yeah, they are
them sparingly.
Yes, nice. Yes. And they are drawn by hand. That makes nice contrast to the cold vector aesthetic of the rest. And and if I want to add maybe also some patterns or vector objects also maybe to the bunny itself, it's also easily possible then in Illustrator, and it appears here in Photoshop as well.
Nice.
And so it's easy and cool to switch between the both apps. Yes.
So if you were to to work on this further and for longer, how much more would you plan to add to this?
I don't know. I just think
just keep going.
For now it's okay, but normally I would add highlights everywhere and some more details into his the teeth and everything. But for this 1 hour, I think it's okay. I think it's more about the idea itself. One thing I want to add was the background thing, so I can add a new layer here, and and just to show you because it's a really cool feature to add other objects also in different layers. And then this should be definitely enough for today. And then I always have to figure out a fitting and nice form of these zigzag objects that makes sense.
Like trying to be random with things, but at the same time it's completely not random. You're purposely choosing.
These things are never random. They have to look dynamic and somehow stylish, and definitely have to look like randomly.
Random. Planned them.
Okay, maybe it's a bit. Okay, that doesn't matter. It's because
Nice.
I'll make this just maybe a bit more better. Okay, if I save this, they appear again here.
Boom.
Yeah, and then I could also put it like shadow again and even more details, and I could work 2 days on this illustration.
Keep going, yeah.
But for now,
No, this has been brilliant. We've seen so much come together in the space of an hour, and this is what I always love about Adobe Live, is that you can have a casual conversation, and in the middle of it, some great artwork appears. It's magic, to say the least. I love it. Attila, thank you for sharing this. This has been a great sort of insight into illustration, and I especially enjoy sort of hearing about your real world physical space experience as well. That's always very interesting. For those of you who watch Adobe Live regularly, tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, that'll be Wednesday, that's right, we have our Earth Day stream coming up. I know it's technically not Earth Day tomorrow, but we stream Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And so we'll be going through some wildlife photography, if I have that correct, I think so. And coming up as well, there is OFF, the digital or the creative festival. Not going to OFF this year, but I always want to go to OFF. It looks like a brilliant celebration of creativity, and we're back in person. But Adobe will also be streaming and doing some live streams. And likewise, if you want to get involved and send your portfolios, there'll be a link, I believe, in the chat that Tim has just put there. You can submit your portfolios and have a review from some creative professionals from OFF. So that is a great sort of roundup of what's coming up on Adobe Live. Attila, thank you for sharing your work. If you want to go and follow, you are Vidam Studio, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, on Instagram it's Vidam Studio, and on Behance is just Vidam.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing your tips and insights. It's been wonderful seeing your work, and I look forward to seeing everyone on Adobe Live sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.